All right, let's do it live on a Tuesday edition of the program. Merely Beau, the great Z, sun-kissed Z. Oh, my gosh, the tan is gorgeous. Just gorgeous.
It feels good. Feels good. It's, it was a great time. The wife and I down in Charleston for our anniversary. What an incredible city. I could not recommend Charleston more as a destination for whether you wanted to go just for food, for fun, for romance, for history.
Sure.
It's incredible. It is.
It's just an incredible hole in my resume. I don't know how I haven't been
Same.
there, but I've been wanting to. We had a vacation booked there a couple of years ago, right when COVID hit, and it's someplace I've always wanted to go.
You'd thrive.
I feel like I think I would.
I mean, you'd thrive.
Well, and I knew you would. I thought I had a hunch you would thrive.
And boy, did I. I mean, folks, it is, and I found out after I got there, there are actually nonstops. You can get there out of Akron nonstop, which is.
I thought so, yeah.
Which is lovely.
I think we talked.
It's on Breezy or Breeze.
Oh, okay.
Some airline with which I was unfamiliar. But at the same time, I feel
like
that's good.
Might be.
If it had something catastrophic had happened, you'd be quite familiar with the airline.
That's a great point. Yeah. Like if it hadn't gone well.
Yeah, it's like an offensive lineman.
We would know.
If you're not talking about it, it's doing its job.
Yeah, that's the job.
That's the job. Just get me there safely. But awesome time. Incredible food city. Incredible history. And the city itself is so preserved because of the fact, two things. One, they cannot build any buildings higher than the church steeples that are there that are like the original. I mean, a lot of it's 1700s.
Sure.
And so that's cool. It keeps it very much preserves the city in that regard. And then some of the old houses and the verandas and the wraparound porches. It's just the colors. It was just spectacular. Could not have had a better time.
You saw the sun most days.
Clearly,
Quite burned. As you can see. We did have sun. We had a gorgeous day yesterday on President's Day. Just gorgeous in the 50s. Sun was out. Even Sunday was fine. It was cold. It was still in the 30s, but the sun was out at least, so that felt like a win.
Yeah.
And then today, not. It was sad.
Welcome back, Zegura.
That's right.
There's some gray, some rain, nastiness.
Yeah. The boys yesterday they were shooting some hoops in the driveway, and I had to inform them, like they thought it was spring, that it's over. And I said, no. This is the Giant Tees, boys.
That's right.
Welcome to the Giant Ohio Tees, because this is from what now to the end of April is this 50 and rain, cold, warm up one day, back to 50 and rain. Buckle up, boys.
Buckle up. Yeah, don't get excited. Don't get ahead of yourself.
No.
Real quick before we move completely off Charleston, I know you as, my wife is the great documentarian on our Instagram, but I dabbled the first night. I wanted to give a little food review. Went to a restaurant called Husk, which I would give a 100% recommendation. Anybody goes to Charleston must go there. And they had pork belly lettuce wraps, which were
that's a delight.
A total delight. And they had these fried chicken thighs with hot honey that was just bonkers. So the food was great. As you and I talked, Blood Oath bourbon.
There you go.
How do you not get something called Blood Oath bourbon?
Got to.
Stored in rum casks from the Caribbean. Just a delight. The food was incredible. Then we went to our last night, went to this place called Tempest, which was also awesome food. But they did something that I thought was really, really cool. So it's built on an old church that is now two restaurants. One's called Church, and then the other one is Tempest.
Okay.
It's a seafood place, as the name would indicate. When the meal concludes, they said something that there had originally been a restaurant there in, I think, the 1860s.
Okay.
At this location. And when the meal concluded in that original restaurant, it was known for, it would give a red rose to the lady.
Okay.
It would give a cigar to the gentleman. And two cognacs, a cognac for each.
Wonderful.
And that's just like complimentary. That's how they end the meal. They're like, here's your, we've had our dessert and have this. And they said, this is what they come, they give the spiel about this is what used to be here at the site. That's what they were known for. And so we're carrying on that tradition today. So you got a cigar, a red rose, and two cognacs. And we just sat there, and the people next to us were like, sure, go ahead, light it up. So Miss Kay and I puffed on the cigar. We were sitting outdoors, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
And it was just.
Do you like cigars historically, or?
Nah.
But the moment
was great.
It's going to take over.
Yeah, I'll show you in the break. Some great pictures.
that is fantastic. Yeah, I mean that is a moment where you would.
Right. It's like it's the tradition. We're not going to do it.
That's right. Yeah.
And so It was cool. It was fun. A cigar with some cognac after you've just had they had their dessert there was called elevated s'mores. Quite frankly, the best dessert I've ever had in my life. I don't even know what was happening. It was just
it's great.
Bananas. It was so good.
I've tried many times to get cigars to take because I really like the idea of cigars.
Sure.
And I've tried many different varieties, and I've tried them with bourbon or without, or with whiskey or cognac or whatever, rum, and it doesn't take. I just don't like the taste in my mouth the next day. I feel like I can't get it out.
This one was a light one, fortunately, which is, I think, key.
Probably is. I've tried all the different varieties,
sure.
and I because I feel like the idea of it is.
I mean,
there's something contemplative while you're having a cigar. You're taking in the world. There's an ambiance to it. I think it's so much more relaxing than any of the others. But it's just I've tried. I really have. I've tried all sorts of varieties, and it just didn't take. So
it
unfortunately, that and flip flops are two things that I've tried, and they just didn't take.
Oh boy, flip flops.
No, I love a slide. I just don't love.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Would you look at that guy?
That's all you want.
I got some.
That's it. See?
Hold on, we got some. Oh, here you go. Here's a little.
See? That's what I mean. That just looks relaxing.
Just a couple of kids out
of aristocrats
having a
living
good
your
time.
best life.
I mean, I think this one, she's giving kind of a mug too. I'm like,
she really is. That's really
harkening back to the days of Al Capone.
Brings me great joy on that front. Did you check out any of the All-Star Weekend from right here in our fair city?
I checked out quite a bit of it, actually, just in bits and pieces. And then obviously the highlights of the game and the moment with Michael Jordan coming out, Steph Curry putting on an absolute.
It's the most impressive shooting performance I've ever seen.
Was 16 of 27?
Well, he was 15 of 21 at one point, and he had 4 or 5 trips in a row where he shot them from everywhere. And it was one thing because he hit a bunch early, and they were kind of, it was just kind of in the run of play, and they weren't playing that hard. But then in the third quarter, he went nuts, and it was like they were trying to not let him make them because it was like, okay, it's enough.
Yeah.
And he was really the only thing LeBron's team had going offensively was all him.
Yeah.
And
he scored 50.
Yeah, it was the most impressive shooting performance I've ever seen because he was 15 of 21, and then he was trying to break the record.
Yeah, he needed 53.
Which was to get to 53, and so then that's when it got a little loose. But when he was just in the run of play, and the fact that he was shooting him, turning his back, and then not even watching them fall.
Yeah, one of those was from
twice
near half court.
Yeah, he did that twice. It was a tremendous show. By all accounts, our city absolutely crushed it.
Yeah.
That seems to be the big thing. I think that is the big part of the game. I think they got the game right. I mean, the Elam ending is awesome. Like, people are jacked up to finish the game. The intensity was there. I think the end of each quarter where the money goes to charity was really cool. Like, you'd tell the last minute they were into it.
Oh, yeah.
But the fourth quarter was great. I mean, it was awesome. The Elam ending was awesome. LeBron's shot was awesome.
What's the ending called?
It's called Elam ending. They run it in the basketball tournament. A guy from Ohio, I believe, actually came up with it. And you just play to a score. And it's
set after
the third quarter. It's the same, whatever it is. Like, you got to get to, I think the number was 163 or something like that. They had to get to first to 163 wins. But that added to it because all of a sudden Jared Allen's playing defense on Joel Embiid and blocking him at the rim. Like, it was like, wow, you don't expect that in an all-star game. So that really helped. Too. He's so good. I mean, he's so huge really too. Good. You don't realize how much skilled. Bigger he is than everybody else. I thought really though it was and Gibby would. I don't know how I know how he would take it, but this was really this was a weekend about the city. It was about the young Cavs, and it was about LeBron James. And he set the tone early when he said that, well, there's 3 Cavs, in the All-Star game, and he mentioned Allen and Garland and then himself. The way that he was applauded every time he was introduced, you could tell it got into his spirit too. He screamed when Ahmad announced him as the starting, and he was the last guy. The place went nuts. When he was introduced on the 75th, the place went nuts. Like, it's just in our nature to root for him because we have for so long, and despite people like Gibbe who want no part of it, the reality is that when you're in the moment, old habits die hard, and it was awesome. So I think it was really, he felt to me like a Cavalier who just was like playing for the Lakers right now is what it felt like to me.
But it felt like I think he wants to come back. Now, he made this speech at the end that I'll go wherever Bronny goes. That's, which is basically anybody who wants me at the end of my career, draft Bronny.
But that's going to be tough. I mean, Bronny's really, really talented, but he's 6'3". He's like the 43rd ranked player in that class. So that could be a pro. but it's probably not a first-round pick.
Sure.
So that's a part of it too. No, I think it was infectious for him. You could see it building as the days built, whether it was the All-Star practice to the game, all of it. You could just see kind of a slow build for him throughout the weekend.
And Jordan, that was awesome having Jordan come out.
Well, he was at the Daytona 500, so his race to Daytona 500 was Sunday, and his team finished second. Bubba Wallace, they had a chance to win the Daytona 500 in their first shot at it, and so he was at Daytona in the afternoon and then flew up. And he is – you've been in the presence of him before, right? Yeah. I mean, he's one of those guys that the sea splits no matter the room.
Incredible.
No matter the room, the presence just splits, and he has that. And so for him to be there, and you get humbled, like you hear all those names, and you go, God,
yeah, it's pretty impressive,
really cool. And I don't know what it is. So Cleveland had the 35th, the 50th, and the 75th All-Star games or years of the league, the anniversary of the league. So we've gotten all of those moments have been here.
Yeah,
which is pretty wild that they give Cleveland all of that.
And I do love that Stinks was booed, then applauded for just the sheer greatness that he was displaying.
Yeah.
And then booed again when he won the MVP.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the best shooter ever. That's it. That's the list. No one's had that range. No one has shot like that.
When you see the other guys are in awe of it, the other pros who are the best of the best, and for Steph to put that display on, knowing everybody that was in attendance at that game.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I think that's a big,
There's no doubt. The one thing that stunned me about the game, because I think an All-Star game's made for him, was the lack of Luka.
Yeah, he was really, I don't know if he didn't do much.
He didn't even play much, and he had 8 points.
Yeah, he just kind of floated. When he was out there, he just kind of floated around. He didn't do
I know that in All-Star games there's usually the guys that are assertive, right, that are like, okay, this is going to be my showcase.
Right.
But he's a guy that, he could have gone for 50.
And he's also a great passer. So what what you're looking for in an All-Star game is you want somebody who's a really creative passer and all of those things.
But LaMelo's really good.
Oh, he's fun. Ja Morant is a sensation.
Yep.
Like Kenny Smith said something. I know a lot of people are on the dunk contest, and he said, every generation, it was really smart at the end of it all because the boys loved all this, of course. And he said at the end, every generation has their generational guys. So it was Jordan for a generation, and then it was Vince Carter had that was his generation, and there's been others, whether it was Zach LaVine, who's a hell of a dunker. There's other guys through the years.
Zach LaVine and Gordon are so much better than everybody else that participate.
Oh, yeah.
Funny.
It's not funny. And he goes, this generation's didn't do it. And what he meant was Zion Williamson's not here, and he's a natural to win. He would have been a guy. And then Ja Morant is probably the other guy. Ja Morant can he's 6'2", he touches his head on the rim.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
I would imagine, young Beau in California, just like me in the mountain air in Montana, whenever you would get around a rim that was dunkable, a dunk rim as we called it, you just dunked in that dunk contest, and all you wanted to do, and I think it's because we grew up with Dominique and Jordan and their epic battles. How is it not? How do these guys not have that passion for it? It's amazing to me how many stars don't want to do the dunk contest.
I think LeBron started that by saying no.
Why do you think he didn't want to do it?
Maybe just the pressure of it, just too much to try to be, and he's more of an in-game dunker anyway. I don't know if he's got all the tricks.
But think about,
he was when he would have been coming in, it wouldn't have been that far removed from Carter, and no one's ever touching the Carter dunk contest as an individual performance. That's the only thing I can think of. But him not doing it allowed for others to not do it, because up until then it was a rite of passage. From Jordan and Dominique, Kobe did it. Vince Carter did it. A lot of great players did it on their way up. And him saying he was the first guy to say no.
I think it's so unfortunate.
I do too.
Because now, let me just as a hypothetical. Because it wasn't a social media age. So you have to remember that. So, the ability to access crazy in-game dunks and have sports content pushed to you all the time during Jordan's heyday was not what it is for even LeBron's career.
No.
You think about the posters.
Oh, yeah.
It's all iconic moments from dunk contests.
Oh, yeah.
The one where he's dunking the moon, I had that poster. Mm-hmm. You have the flight from the free throw line.
Yep.
So without the dunk contest, of course, he's still the greatest ever, but is he the myth, the legend? Is his brand, the brand of the shoes? to the level that they were if he decides I'm never doing a dunk contest?
No, because
Right.
that elevated him. That made him different.
Mainstream.
Like when he jumped from the free throw line, no one had done. I mean, Dr. J did it, but no one saw that. Like this was everybody
And
seeing
he did it with some
he
panache,
double
got the
clutched
leg spread and the whole deal.
Yeah, no, it was. I think that it did. I think it elevated him, and now, I think LeBron, unfortunately, that's one of the negative things was him not doing it.
I think it's weird. Like a guy like Ja, you're gonna win.
Yeah.
So just go do it and have that cool moment.
They got to get rid of the idea of you can replace a bunch of them too. Like
no,
enough. You miss once, that's it.
That's what it used to be.
Yeah, get out of here. Like having that one kid from the Rockets kept having his buddy and he just kept screwing it up, and it's like, dude, just dunk it. Like you don't need all this.
That
nonsense.
was bad. That was bad.
That
Karl
was
Anthony Towns winning
good.
the 3-point contest was cool to see a big guy.
Yeah,
and he got hot.
Yeah, he did. He had a stretch. I was rooting for the Ohio and Luke Kennard, but yeah, that was pretty cool to see a big do that. So it was a good weekend for our city. Lots of social media posting around the National Football League, including our guy Jarvis Landry. We will get to that. Aaron Rodgers posted last night pretty cryptically. He's on Pat McAfee's show right now. We'll tell you what he said about his future. That's all coming up next. We'll take a deep dive on the defensive line as well. And at the top of next hour, Dalton Miller will join us, Pro Football Network, with some interesting thoughts on defensive line and depth and how to address that going forward. We're off and running here on a Tuesday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Out there for gambling, secret methods, picking lottery numbers to betting big when you're on a roll. These myths can lose you money and get you in a lot of trouble. So before you wager, find out what's real and what isn't at keepitfunohio.com. All right, so Jarvis, this was around 9 o'clock this morning. Our great friend Jarvis Landry, great friend of the program, went to the Twitter and with a series of tweets describing some of the things he had been through this year and, just kind of where he is. You and I have great affection.
Tremendous.
For Jarvis Landry.
Tremendous affection.
And I think many in this organization have tremendous affection for Jarvis Landry. So it's three tweets. He says, the reality behind this is I came back to play in the best shape of my life. I got hurt week 2 with a high-grade MCL sprain, partial quad tear, and bone bruise, and came back way too early and ended up staying hurt the entire season. You never heard me mention anything about it. He continues, also my media availability didn't happen because I was focused on getting on the field as healthy as possible during the week and after games. A strategic plan was set in place to be followed. I put the ball in Cleve's court by telling them I'd like to stay, but if not, then I have okay, so this kind of continues, but I'm confident of myself to be better healthy me this year moving forward to helping do my part in winning a championship elsewhere. He continues here. Before this year, I missed 0 games. So push all your narrative. It's noted. I gave everything. No one would argue that. Nobody would argue that. And I don't think there's any narrative about Jarvis Landry, injury prone or the like. I think everybody knows the dude's a warrior.
No.
Like, I haven't seen any sort of negative on that front. But this is also, in big picture wise, beyond just, and we'll get into the, what it means or what you can read into it and all of that. But this is also an example of, with social media, athletes can go directly, they get their message directly out. It used to be if you were trying to get a message out, you'd call Peter King or you'd call Brown's PR and set up an interview with Peter King or Mort or Ed Werder or one of the guys here locally. And you do the story. You call Jake Trotter, and you do the story, and that's the way it would go. You don't need to do that anymore. You can do it yourself, and Jarvis did that this morning with these series of tweets. What did you make of the timing of it? What did you make of the tone?
So we know the Combine is coming up next week. That's when a lot of these things are going to be talked about and looked at. I mean, you look at Jarvis's contract this year. Jarvis's cap number for the Browns in 2022 would be $16.379 million, which would be the second highest figure on the team behind only the quarterback Baker Mayfield. He's got a contract that is, in terms of what is guaranteed this season, he's got, there's $1.5 guaranteed, 14.9 in cap savings. So I think part of this is you've got, I think an obvious situation here where this could be a salary restructure in the last year of his deal as a way to keep him here, and change around the dollars a little bit. I think that he is saying, look, I want to be here.
Yeah.
But he very well could be saying, I want to be here on the contract that I am signed to and play under that. And the Browns may say, oh, well, we would like you to be here, but not at that necessarily at that valuation. So I think Jarvis is taking social media and saying, look, he would do anything. He gave it his all for this team. There's no doubt about that. He is not injury prone. He is as tough as they come. He's a guy who played with a broken bone in his back. I'll say that again. He's a guy who played with a broken bone in his back. I love Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry to me is the heart and soul of this football team and of this organization, and I certainly want nothing more than to see Jarvis Landry continue his career here and finish his career here. We've said that, I think, on this show many, many times, that you want to see him be the guy that, he helped change this culture. This was a difficult year for Jarvis. Facts are the facts. Odell Beckham Jr. is one of his best friends. It did not go from a statistical standpoint the way that he would have wanted it to go this season, as he did battle that injury his first of the year. And then, it would appear in some of the games that maybe his chemistry in the passing game was better when Case Keenum was the quarterback. You think about the Denver game, you think about the end of the year when he finally got back in the end zone. So I think that there's a lot at play here. I think Jarvis, wants to. He said he came back too early. He said his media availability didn't happen. He was focused on getting back on the field.
I thought it was interesting. He said, that he was hurt, but you never heard a word of it.
But you didn't.
No, you didn't. We didn't, not till now.
Right.
But that speaks
No,
to
because what he says is
that speaks to who he is.
Of course.
That speaks to who he is. And I think you look at the acquisition of him. I think you look at the speech in Hard Knocks.
Yes.
And you think of that. He's the heart and soul, man. And he's beloved in the building. Beloved. So it would pain me to see him put on another uniform. It would do me physical pain. I would have no interest in seeing him in another uniform. And I think if anybody, you think of the people on this roster who deserve to see the type of success we had last year and more, he's among the first I think of. That it's him, Batonio, the guys who've been here, and the guys who changed it. And he gets a lot of credit for that, and it's deserved.
There's no doubt. And I love Jarvis, as I said, and there's reporting now that Jarvis's representation and the Browns are going to get together at the Combine in Indy to feel each other out and see where everybody stands going into this season. And so I think that's where that's going to come from. I mean, Jarvis is obviously expressing some of his frustrations in terms of what is going on, but at the same time he's saying, I want to be here and the ball is in your court. I want to be here. Let's make that happen. And so I think that's where Jarvis is. And now we'll find out kind of if the Browns and Jarvis can be on the same page in terms of what they want to be, in terms of how they view this roster, in terms of how they view Jarvis's role on this roster, how Jarvis views his role on this roster. And I think that, as we've talked about over and over and over and over and over again, the number one priority is the passing game. I don't think there's a team in the NFL that is worse for having Jarvis Landry on their team, Browns included. So I think they are better for having Jarvis Landry on their team. They've got to figure out, in terms of an offense, and that's the other thing. Well, receivers are unhappy because this offense doesn't feature the receivers. That's erroneous. Nonsense. Receivers can make plays in this offense. There was many a missed opportunity this year. Our quarterback was hurt, didn't play to the level that we've come to expect from him, and that, I think, wore on our receivers. As we said, from a scheme standpoint, Pro Football Focus broke this down in their advanced metrics. We had 3 or more receivers open on over, I think, 36% of our plays, which was the second highest number in the NFL.
Yep.
Behind only the Ravens. And in the Ravens case, that's happening because people are worried about Lamar Jackson running the ball. In our case, it's because our scheme was so good. And yet people want to, this scheme sucks. This scheme is not good for receivers. You're wrong. I'll look right at the camera. You are all wrong. You're wrong. Wherever that camera is right now.
This is a tough angle.
Those people saying it, you're wrong. So
you too.
As well.
I took care of you.
Thank you.
Yep.
This offense can be fantastic for wide receivers.
Yeah.
You guys know Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
You guys know Cooper Kupp? You guys know Jamar Chase?
Stephon Diggs?
Yeah. So that is none of that is valid. What we did not do is execute at the level, and I think that really wore on our receivers, and Jarvis Landry included. And so, we've got coming up this week, Ben Lindsley from Pro Football Focus is going to join us tomorrow. He's going to talk to us a little bit about the quarterback study they did, and it wasn't great for our quarterback this year. But he was good in it in 2020. So how does he get back there? How does this offense get back there? That's going to be the question that faces this football team. But I think from Jarvis Landry's standpoint, that's what he's saying here. That's what he's talking about. What he's saying is, look, I gave everything here. I'm better than what my numbers were this past season, and I am ready to prove that, and I would love to do it here. But if it's not here, it's somewhere else. I mean, if you're Jarvis Landry, 52 catches, career low. 570 yards receiving, career low. 2 touchdowns, career low. That's not who he knows he is. This guy with 3,000-yard seasons under his belt. This guy with multiple 100-catch seasons. This guy he started his career with 80 or more catches his first 6 years in the league. And so that production has dwindled the last 2 seasons. And so I definitely think that he's concerned about that and wants to be sure that this is the right fit for him and the Browns want him. And so we'll see how this plays out. But you are going to need better play at the quarterback position, no doubt. I think everybody knows that.
Yep.
I think Baker would be the first person to tell you. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. And you need increased talent at the wide receiver position. You need a dude.
Yeah, you need a dude. Maybe 2.
And
but
maybe
definitely
2.
1.
But Jarvis is, I think, a wonderful, reliable interior receiver. I think that Donovan Peoples-Jones has potential to keep developing. Anthony Schwartz is still very young and raw. And Hollywood Higgins has shown when given opportunities that he can play at a good level. But what we don't have is that guy that defenses have to adjust to or account for like we did when Odell was here.
Yep.
And whether people like Odell or not, it doesn't matter. Clearly the guy can play, and clearly the guy makes an impact.
Well, I mean, look at the Super Bowl. All you got to look is our games prior and with him.
Yes.
You're better with him. And I know statistically it didn't add up, but if you watch the All-22, you see it. You see the difference, and you see the attention defense is paid to Odell Beckham Jr. when he was here. So that kind of lets you know where you're at and where you need to go. We'll get to this Rodgers stuff in the second hour of the program. Just to give you the headliner here, though, no announcement today on his future on the McAfee Show. But there is a cleanse that he did that I'm going to run you through in the second hour of this show, and I'll see if you could stomach it, because I know I sure as heck couldn't. We'll get to that a little bit later. Pretty wild stuff on that.
Are you talking about the Instagram?
No.
Oh, I don't even know what you're talking about then.
What he consumed, like a cleanse.
Oh, no. Unaware.
Oh, yeah.
Happily. I was eating great food, not cleanse.
Not him.
Mine wasn't about a cleanse. Mine
Not
was
him.
about indulgence.
Of course. That's what it can be at its best.
Yeah.
We'll do a position review coming up next on the defensive line. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Friends at EOX Vantage. EOX Vantage connects core systems that don't talk. From reporting and analytics to insight and decision-making, gain a more complete picture of your business. You can eliminate those Excel nightmares from the processes that give you headaches. You can visualize your important data in one place. Gain real-time insight to make data-driven decisions on performance through role-based visualization dashboards. With EOX Vantage, you can benefit from lower overall costs, better alignment between technology and specific business needs, scalability, ease of deployment, and management. EOX Vantage makes your data work smarter to move your business forward. You're about growth, and your software should be too. And with EOX Vantage, it can be. Your company will scale effortlessly. Local presence with global footprint and trusted by some of the world's biggest brands. Check them out, www.eoxvantage.com for more. We continue our positional preview of your Cleveland Browns on the defensive line. This is one of those things when you look at it, and by the sheer numbers, 43 sacks on the year, that was good for 9th in the NFL. Rush defense, 109.2, that was 12th in the NFL. Pressure percentage, 24.3, that is 17th in the NFL. This is one of those rooms that, and we'll get to the questions on it in a second and get to your overview, but it's one of those rooms that what I thought would be this year's defensive line isn't. And so now it went from something that you didn't think you had to worry about to maybe you do.
I think it's a big something to worry about, to be perfectly honest with you here with the Browns, because right now, based off of last year, of your starters or of the guys who played, the 4 guys who played the most snaps for you, there is one on your roster guaranteed to be, and that's Myles Garrett. Now, that's a good one to have guaranteed, probably the most important one.
Yep.
Myles, obviously, as we know, set the Browns franchise record, career high 16 sacks, first team All-Pro for the second straight year, Pro Bowler for the 3rd time in his career and second straight season. Became the first Brown in team history to have double-digit sacks in 4 straight seasons. Was the number 1 graded edge defender at Pro Football Focus, number 1 pass rush grade in the NFL, number 2 overall defensive grade behind only Aaron Donald. He's good. He's back. But then it's wide open. Clowney, unrestricted free agent, turns 29 this year, 9 sacks in 14 games. That's the most he's had since he had 9 in Houston in 2018. He was a Pro Bowler that year, Pro Bowl alternate for the Browns. 11 tackles for loss, 19 quarterback hits, was disruptive, was great against the runs as well. You know, I think that he is a top free agent priority for the Browns to retain, to keep Clowney with Myles. And then because Tack, who played well for you, Achilles late in the year, much like Olivier Vernon the year before, you're going to need, I still think, to draft a young pass rusher as a succession plan to be a running buddy for Myles Garrett for the near future. Beyond that, defensive end, what you've got right now is not a whole lot. Tax an unrestricted free agent, likely won't be ready for week 1 of the 2022 season. So you're not going to get that. And unfortunately for him, he had his best game, 8 pressures and a sack and a win over the Ravens in week 14 before suffering that injury against Vegas in week 15. You talk about, the backups there. Ifeadi Odenigbo, 9 games for the Browns, 162 snaps, no sacks, 3 hits, 5 pressures. Does have 10.5 career sacks, had 7 with Minnesota in 2019. He'll be 28 this year. He's an unrestricted free agent. Porter Gustin, a restricted free agent, 6 games, 134 snaps this year, no sacks, 4 pressures. He has 1 career sack back in 2019. Former 5-star recruit at USC. It's a nice note to throw in there.
That's right.
Love that 5-star.
We hadn't heard that before, so yeah.
And then you've got Curtis Weaver, who made his NFL debut in 2021 against Cincinnati. 6 snaps for the season, 1 quarterback pressure. That's it, though. He's been on your practice squad. So
you would say, though, that he had transformed his body at one point.
At one point, he did.
He was kind of the guy that we thought would go,
would get
and
a
then
chance.
It never materialized.
No.
It never went.
No, did not necessarily have a great preseason game. Remember, he missed a year. Didn't have a great preseason performance and was clearly behind Odenigbo. Joe Jackson, who was on the roster for much of the year, signed with Kansas City late in the year. So, I mean, you're talking about your defensive end room right now is Myles Garrett and Curtis Weaver.
Yeah.
Gustin's a restricted free agent. Tack unrestricted and hurt. Odenigbo unrestricted. Clowney unrestricted. Clowney, I think, massive priority to get him back. Now we go to the defensive tackle room. Not much better there. Not much better there. So your starters were Malik Jackson, Malik McDowell. Malik battled through this year. He was fashion icon as well. 16 games, 646 snaps, which were the most among defensive tackles. Half sack, 26 total pressures. His pressures were 3rd on the team and most among defensive tackles. But look, he's going to be 32 this year. And you could tell his body was starting to betray him as that season went on. Gutted it out. Great guy, great leader, great in the room. But he's an unrestricted free agent. Then you got Malik McDowell. First play of his NFL career this year, tackled for loss against the Chiefs in week 1 of 2021, even though he was drafted back in 2017. Off-field issues. 15 games, 645 snaps, 2nd most among defensive tackles. He had 3 sacks, 3rd most on the team this year, Malik McDowell. 24 pressures, 5th most. Great find, feel-good story. Now he has this offseason incident in Florida, off-field incident, which is not a great one. So his NFL and Browns future is very much up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your starters. He's an exclusive rights free agent. If for the Browns through investigation, if they feel that he was drugged or whatever the case may be, that he has a chance to come back, that's possible. If not, you're without both starters from a year ago against defensive tackle. Guys that you know will be on the roster at defensive tackle, Jordan Elliott, your third-round pick in 2020, 16 games, career-high 464 snaps, notched his first half-sack versus Baltimore, career highs in pressures with 10 and tackles with 26. But, I mean, he's going to have – we're talking about he's got to step up in a major way.
Oh, yeah.
If he's going to be counted on.
Yeah, yeah.
Tommy Togiai was on the preseason, spent time on the practice squad and the active roster, became active starting in Week 10, 6 games, 125 snaps played, 2 pressures, half a sack, 16 tackles. Very strong. There are a lot of people think he would have been a first-rounder, but didn't give you a whole lot this year.
No.
You're going to need a lot from him. And then the guy that was probably the most productive for you, Sheldon Day, he'll be 28 in 2022. He's an unrestricted free agent, 6-year veteran, 4th-round pick of Jacksonville in 2016 from Notre Dame. Played 7 games this year for the Browns, 233 snaps. Started against Green Bay on Christmas Day for the year, 1 sack, 21 tackles, 11 quarterback pressures. He was the Browns' highest-graded defensive tackle in 2021 per Pro Football Focus. This guy, 67 career games, 3 starts, 7 sacks. Unrestricted free agent. So, again, guaranteed to be in your defensive line room that was so strong. Miles is a guarantee. Togiai is a guarantee. Jordan Elliott's a guarantee. That's the end of the list. You need 8. You need 4 and 4. 3 guys guaranteed to be back.
And it was something where, midway through the season, you would have had Malik McDowell on that list. You would have Takk McKinley on that list. You would have, you felt good that those guys would be back, and you had those things to build with, and now you have a lot of space and a lot of spots that need to be filled. You mentioned Clowney. Boy, watching him in person, you get a true appreciation of how good he was. I mean, I know people look at the sack numbers, and he had 9 of them. But I think some people think he ought to be in that 15 range. It's not the player he is, but in terms of just havoc wreaker around the ball, perfect complement to Miles. I agree with you. He's the second priority behind the pass game in terms of what needs to be fixed this year. Garrett and Clowney, statistically the best pass rush duo that we've had since 1984. Reggie Camp, Clay Matthews combined for 26. They had 25 on that, and the Browns are just one of 5 teams in the NFL that had 2 players scored at least 9 sacks. So that gives you an idea of how good those guys were. Gibby has this question for you and a couple others. Ideally, how many D ends and D tackles do you need when the season starts?
On your 53, you're probably going to have 8. And like I said, Curtis Weaver we could also lump in as we know he's going to be here. So that's 4. But, I mean, the guy played 6 snaps this year, so it's not like he played a ton. You're going to need 8. And right now you've got 1 starting defensive end and maybe a guy who's your 4th defensive end here. You've got your number 1, which is Miles, the most important guy on the list. Defensive tackles, you had your DT3 and DT4. Actually, Togiai was probably DT5 behind Sheldon Day, to be honest. And that's it. So you've got to get, hopefully Sheldon Day back. He knows the system, knows Chris Kiffin very well. That's important. But there are moves to be made. And I think what this defense needs to get it to the next level up front is an interior disruptor, somebody who can get after the quarterback from the inside. And that's not, 3 sacks from Malik McDowell, that was 3rd most on the team. He would have been great. Malik with another interior pass rusher would have been a great thing. But you think about the fact that in our nickel situations, what we called our cheetah package, that was Takk, Clowney, Miles, and one of the Maliks. You don't have 2 of those. Right now you have 1 of the 4. Again.
Yep.
You don't have the 2 ends right now. Now, I do think you're going to have to work to get Clowney back. I think that he had put a pretty impressive season, and I think it was very clear at the end of the year when he had a contract incentive at 9 sacks to get another $1 million, his ability to rack up 4 sacks the final 2 weeks was pretty impressive. And
did you get a sense of him? Obviously, we don't talk to any of these guys anymore. We've had 2 years of COVID, so you don't see him in the building. And did you get a sense of him enjoying his time here?
Very much so. I did think that he liked his time here. I thought that he very much liked playing opposite Miles. And I think that he's a guy that would absolutely love to be back. And I think that he's played himself into a situation where he is, a very, very talented guy. He's going to have a lot of demand, but I think he wants to go to a situation where he's not going to be facing the double teams, where he's not going to be dealing with a lot of the things that you have to deal with in other situations and other organizations. I mean, I think ideally he would want to be here. The Browns showed him a lot of love. remember talking to him before he signed that, Andrew Berry's full court press was one of the reasons he wanted to be here, the way that, Joe Woods loved him. And then I talked to him, I want to say back quartile of the season.
Okay.
I got to interview him for a Kevin Stefanski show. And yeah, I got the sense that he definitely wanted to be here and that he was a guy who, would love to continue to play in this role opposite, Myles Garrett. But I still think there is a lot of work to be done on this defensive line for this Browns team in terms of either retaining guys, but you're going to have to add a lot of talent. And that's why I think, in my ideal drafts this year, you're getting a receiver in round 1. And then I think you're getting an edge in round 2. You need to have that third pass rusher, and you need a guy that can be a succession plan for Clowney because he won't be here forever.
No.
But the interior is massive, and that's why we've got coming up on the program from the Pro Football Network. We have Dalton Miller who wrote an article about DJ Jones in particular, that the Browns should sign DJ Jones. That's one of his targets at defensive tackle for this football team.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing what he has to say. Gibby wants to know if we should go after Larry Ogunjobi. He's a free agent again. Larry got hurt at the end. Significant injury at the end for the Bengals.
So I don't know if he'd be ready. But
I love him, but I doesn't seem
love Larry. But we need healthy guys right now. We don't even have enough guys. Like we don't have enough guys here right now to do OTAs on the defensive line.
No. Percentage this team could go defensive end in round 1 of the draft.
I think
we'll know more next week on that.
I think that there are 4 positions that the Browns could draft in round 1. Wide receiver, which I would put at the heavy favorite.
Agree.
I'll give that, we'll call it 50% wide receiver. Then I think there are 3 buckets. I think there's a defensive end. If there happens to be like a stud pass rushing defensive tackle, you would certainly consider that. And then I think quarterback is the wild card, right? But I think that's small.
Yeah.
Very small. But I think, and that's just spitballing potential positions. So I would, actually, if I was doing this now, I'd probably go 60% wide receiver, 39% defensive end, defensive tackle, 1%
the rest,
the field.
It
might even be 70, 29.
Hard for me. This feels, we'll know more next week when we're at the combine, but it feels like wide receiver at 13, book it, let's go. That does feel like the simple path forward for this team. And this is going to be a defensive end. There's going to be heavy defensive ends early in this round. They're going to be likely 2 of the top 3 picks are going to be defensive ends. A tackle could go high too, but it looks like Hutchinson and Thibodeau are going to go in the top 3 or 4. And there's more. Ajabo from Michigan is in the mix there as well. Not at the top 5, but he'll be a top 15 guy. So there is a ton of talent on the defensive line in this draft. There's a ton of receiver talent, and you need a game wrecker. We saw that in the Super Bowl and the playoffs. You have to have somebody who is a home run hitter.
And we can talk via draft. As the week goes on. Daniel Jeremiah just posted his mock 2.0 as we are on the air here.
Yeah. So we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. But he has the Browns going defensive end in the first round. Wow. Cinco's on the board.
Boy, that would be hard that'd be tough. That'd be a tough one to take if that's the way that it worked. Last question from Gibby here. How important is Chris Kiffin's return to this group?
I think anytime you can have continuity, it is a good thing. I really do. I think it's a very, very good thing for him and for the Browns to have that continuity there, because you're going to have – and look, he coached Sheldon Day. My guess would be, and I'm saying this off the top of my head, but let me look real fast. When we're going to talk about DJ Jones as a potential guy to come to the Browns, my guess is that he coached DJ Jones as well with the 49ers, because he's been with he's been with the Niners since 2017, so he's definitely coached him, because Kiffin was there before he came to the Browns in 2020. So I just think he's an important guy because he understands the game. He obviously is good with the players. They like him, and they have an opportunity to, have that continuity. Everybody on the defensive side, all 3 levels, all speak in the same language that they were a year ago. I think that's good.
Yep. I agree. What was it? Did you have one cocktail there that you hadn't had before? Was there any sort of elixir?
So
that was a new one for you?
Yeah, my favorite cocktails that we had there, obviously the Blood Oath bourbon I had never had before was really a delight. But I had a spicy mezcal pineapple habanero type concoction at Tempest.
That's in your wheelhouse.
And it was really good.
I have not had mezcal. I've seen it many times.
Huge fan.
What is the difference between that and Añejo tequila?
Smoke.
Oh, they throw a little smoke to it.
A lot of smoke.
Oh, so it's kind of like a Scotch would have. That's the peaty.
This is
Scotch
smoke. So they make it's smoked agave.
Oh,
they,
okay.
Burn the leaves
and you don't get like the smoke in the smoke doesn't overpower the drink.
No, I love it.
Okay.
People I found
I'm seeing it
love or don't like mezcal. Like there's pretty. It's not
same
a
thing
lot of ambivalence.
It's same thing with a lot of the single malts, like those ones that are Lagavulins like that, like one of those ones that you either love it or you don't. Like it's got a heavy smoke.
I don't like the ones that are grassy. Like the grassy scotches, I don't like. But smoke.
You like the smoked ones, so you would like Lagavulin then, which is.
But the mezcal is because you get the vanilla, you get all the tequila taste, but then you have that smoke to it that is just.
All right,
it's very good.
Yeah, I like it. I like where your head's at. All right, coming up, top of the hour. Dalton Miller will join us, Pro Football Network on the defensive line. Some of the guys who could be available for us and the rest of the league. That's coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Ohio Business Machine, preferred copier provider, your Cleveland Browns. They have all the X's and O's for your office. Call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. And now we head out on the hotline for a visit with Dalton Miller, Pro Football Network, joining us now. Dalton, thank you so much for the time. Let's just start. You wrote the piece on the defensive line and some of the talent there and had some ideas for us to address in that way. Just in terms of the crop of guys available in general, where does it stack up? What type of talent is available for upgrades if need be?
Yeah, I think the defensive tackle and obviously the edge group in free agency is very good. So I think, when you look at the Browns roster and especially where some of their weaknesses were last season, I think that interior stopping the run and not just stopping the run, but being able to keep JOK clean. And I don't know what they're going to do at the second linebacker spot. I believe Anthony Walker's a free agent as well this year. Yep. So I don't know what they'll do at that second spot, but you want to be able to keep those guys clean. The thing with DJ Jones that really made me happy when I watched his tape and when you really start to dig into his analytics and his numbers is just how good of a playmaker he is. Because when you get a lot of these, 320, 330-pound, one technique defensive tackles, it's a lot of, stack and shed, and they shed a little bit late, or they don't have great arm length, and they're not going out there and making plays behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage. And that's something that he does a fantastic job of, on top of being able to allow his linebackers to kind of roam free behind him.
So, and DJ Jones, Joe Woods would be familiar with him from his time as the DB coach on the 2019 Niners. Chris Kiffin would be familiar with him as well from coaching that line there. So certainly some connections if they wanted to go that way. You mentioned, you look at this Browns team, and right now Miles is under contract, and Curtis Weaver's on a reserve futures deal at defensive end. That's really it. Malik McDowell's future is certainly up in the air. Malik Jackson, an unrestricted free agent. And then you've got the 2 draft picks from the last couple of seasons, Jordan Elliott and Togab. So not a lot there. So I think you're right to look at defensive tackle. So Jones, to you, in your mind, just kind of paint the picture for the people, better against the run, but can still get after the quarterback.
Yes, absolutely. And you didn't really see a lot of him getting after the quarterback until, playoffs kind of came around and he was, kind of given the green light to go, or he decided himself that he was going to become more of a pass rusher. But he gave a couple of those teams fits, especially, once you got to the postseason. But, for this Cleveland Browns team and for what he is as a player, that's not what you're going to pay him for.
Sure.
If you want a guy on the interior that's going to get, some pressure when it comes to, the position. I think you're looking at a guy maybe like an older Calais Campbell if he continues to play, a Solomon Thomas. If he doesn't go back to the Las Vegas Raiders, and those are kind of the guys that you're looking at that can kind of get after the quarterback a little bit better. Those guys, probably going to be a little bit cheaper as well. DJ Jones is a fantastic player. He's going to probably command $5-6 million in free agency. Solomon Thomas, obviously, things didn't go well for him in San Francisco. But I think if you have a defined role for him, I think that he can work out, and I think that he had his best season with the Las Vegas Raiders. That's kind of where I would go if you want a guy that is going to be able to rush the passer a little bit.
I like that very much. Talking with Dalton Miller from Pro Football Network, writing articles, and certainly this one about why the Browns should take a look at DJ Jones in free agency. But for the Browns, it's not just going to be the interior. Yes, that needs to be addressed, but the perimeter as well. What did you think of Clowney last year? And if, you're the Browns and you're Clowney, does that feel like a relationship that, you would want to continue?
I certainly hope so. That was easily the most fun I've seen him having out there on the football field. He looked like he was in it at all times. He had the best year of his career for my money. I felt like he finally started to get it a little bit as a pass rusher because for a long time he just really tried to win with his athleticism. I mean, we obviously know that he is a freak of nature, but I really thought that he was the most technical that he has ever been this season, and I think that it showed in some of his production this year. I mean, he's still a very good run defender. It's just all going to come down to what does he want to do? Because what we've seen from him is he waits, until camp is about to start. And I don't think that the Cleveland Browns are going to be able or going to want to do that. I'm looking probably, if they aren't able to get a multi-year deal with him done, and maybe they can get a one-year deal done with him early. But I'm looking at guys, maybe like Emmanuel Ogbah from Miami. That could be an option. They could even go with somebody like a Justin Houston from Baltimore, if they're trying to get just a one-year deal, come in, be a mercenary for them. But those are kind of the guys I'm looking at outside of that. If you want a longer-term option and you can somehow get a guy like Arden Key from the San Francisco 49ers, he's somebody who really started to flash late. He can rush from the interior and from the outside, and he's a smaller, defensive end. He'd probably be a stand-up guy. I don't know how great the fit would be in Cleveland, but he's a really fun player to watch.
Talking to Dalton Miller, our guest, Pro Football Network. You kind of went over all of the things on the defensive line, and we need a lot of them. We were kind of going through it. Like, it could be 4 or 5 guys that need to come in along the defensive line, both on the interior and the edge. When you think about everything else our defense has, and you're trying to find these matches, and you think about, all right, does this work well together? And you think about the linebacker core specifically, and JOK and what we saw from him in flashes. Are the guys you're assigning, do they make sense for the next couple of levels of our defense, both at linebacker and then all the way back at safety?
Yeah, I think that they do. Outside of the Arden Key fit, I think that everybody else would be a pretty decent one. For what I want to see for the Cleveland Browns, when I watch them, I mean, they have so much talent in the secondary. And for whatever reason last season, it just didn't really mesh at all times. And they have Myles Garrett, who, for my money, is the best pass rusher in the NFL, the best defensive end in the NFL. It just didn't always click. I mean, I love Ward. Ward is fantastic. I think he's an underrated cornerback in the NFL when it comes to your top 10, top 5 lists. Even he's creeping up there. He had a fantastic 2021. I mean, then Greg Newsome was, I thought for a lot of the season, when he was healthy, he was better than Patrick Surtain, and he was the best corner coming out of that class, a class that was really, really good. It'll be interesting to see what happens at that third spot, that nickel spot this year. I think that they could get an upgrade there. I don't think that Hill played very well last year. I think that was part of their issues, but I think that the safety play just didn't really fit what they wanted to do last year. I think that they put John Johnson in some positions that he wasn't necessarily used to. I'm interested to see what happens with Harrison. Obviously, I believe this is the final year of his deal, and then they have Grant Delpit as well. So they get healthy in that secondary and they mesh together at all. They have, them or the Denver Broncos have the best or the most talented secondary in the NFL, and they just need to figure it out.
Yeah, and going hand in hand, they always say the pass rush works with the coverage, and the coverage works with the pass rush as well. Is there somebody that you see, and perhaps this will be something the Browns address in the draft, but if it is not, if it's something they address in free agency, let's assume that Clowney comes back. Who could be kind of the Tack McKinley? Because the Browns in their pass rushing situations last year went with 3 defensive ends. They called their cheetah package, and they would move Clowney or Myles Garrett inside. McKinley would be outside with the other, and then one of the defensive tackles. Is there somebody that, has that kind of pop that could get after the quarterback that would maybe be a one-year deal that isn't going to cost a fortune but has an opportunity, to come in and be kind of that third guy?
Yeah, I think you're looking, in that situation specifically, I think you're looking at a guy like Arden Key if you can get him on a one-year deal. Kamoko Toure from Indianapolis might be another option. Uchenna Nwosu from the Chargers. I know he played a little bit more of a hybrid role for Los Angeles, but I thought coming out, I thought he was a pass rusher. So those are kind of the 3 names that you look at when you get into that kind of NASCAR package that you would want to put on the field.
Very interesting stuff there, and a lot of opportunity to improve this thing going forward. We were watching the postseason and see what Burrow did, and you see the explosiveness that you're seeing of the teams that made the long runs with home run hitters on offense. And one thing that Nathan and I kind of felt was, and obviously this has got to get sorted out on the defensive line, but it does feel like defensively we are built to at least kind of be the antidote to that. When you think of the versatility of this defense and you think about going forward having to deal with Burrow and Allen and Mahomes Herbert on a consistent basis to get out of the AFC, do you like the building blocks that are here over the next couple of years?
I love it, and I was super high on Cleveland coming into the season. Obviously, the injuries to Baker Mayfield did not help. His poor play, probably a lot to do with the injury and kind of his mechanics falling apart because of it. That's kind of what killed the season. The defense didn't perform up to the standard that I thought that they would be coming into it, but I think that the pieces are all there for them to be a top 10 defense in the NFL. And it's a really difficult spot because defense isn't replicable year to year usually. It just all kind of depends on the quarterbacks that you play in season. You play good quarterbacks, your defense probably isn't going to look as good, and that's just kind of the way that the NFL works, and that kind of goes to the explosive plays, being able to go out and score touchdowns. And there's been studies done about how much explosive plays actually mean to an offense. If you get one explosive play, you have this much higher of a percentage to score a touchdown on that drive, two this much. And if you get 3 or 4, you're almost guaranteed to score a touchdown. So if you're able to take away those plays, and with this secondary specifically, they should be able to be built in that manner. I think that they have a good future ahead of them. But then when we talk about explosive plays, we look at the other side of the ball. They got to figure that side out as well. They need to figure receiver out.
They certainly do, and receiver is a position that is likely, kind of probably like the defensive end, is going to ultimately end up being a combination of, draft assets as well as free agency and figuring out Jarvis Landry and how they can keep him here if that's, what is in the cards, and we certainly on this program hope that it is. You're talking. Those are the things, right, for this team. We call it the passing game, so it's obviously understanding and getting better play at the quarterback position. But who are you going to add from a talent standpoint to receiver, and then how do you maintain what had the makings of a very good defensive line that, for a combination of free agency, injury, age, is now, other than Miles, which is the most important piece, obviously, is a little bit of a question mark.
Absolutely. And there's a bunch of guys in free agency that you can look at as well at receiver. Will Fuller really hasn't played much football recently, but when he is on the field, he's very, very good at football. If you can get him on a cheap deal, that's your explosive playmaker right there. You still, Anthony Schwartz is there, and obviously you want him to be molded into your deep threat, but I don't think he's there yet. But that's a good little, backup for if and when Will Fuller ends up getting hurt. And like I said, you hope Schwartz develops a little bit. I know that Christian Kirk has been a big name when it comes to Brown's Twitter recently. I think he'd be a great fit if you do end up losing Jarvis Landry, just because I don't think that Christian Kirk is a guy who's going to move to the outside and be successful. I think he's primarily a slot receiver. And then there's going to be options when they get to the Browns pick in the NFL draft. They might get their pick of the litter when it comes to the wide receivers in the draft this year. There are a bunch of good ones at the top that they can choose from. So They have options. They're going to be able to build pretty much however they want. Their offensive line is set. Their offensive line, when it is healthy, is very, very talented. And then you just got to hope that Baker Mayfield's able to rehab and come back and with better mechanics next year.
Right, and kind of regain that form we saw over the second half of the 2020 season. I want to throw another receiver name at you, just get to your quick take on it. DJ Chark, who was a guy that, a couple years removed from being a big-time producer with not necessarily the best quarterback play in the league down in Jacksonville, obviously got hurt this year. But there's a guy with some big play ability as well, right?
Absolutely. With Fuller, I was just going with the cheaper option. And DJ Chark is still pretty young.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to go on with his health. I kind of look at it as hurt guys tend to stay hurt. But if he is inexpensive, yeah, absolutely. It's not like the Browns are hurting for salary cap space right now.
Right.
They haven't made a decision on Baker Mayfield, rightfully so, obviously. And so you can kind of attack. And if it doesn't work out this year, then you can kind of reevaluate your quarterback position. But if it does work, a guy like DJ Chark is probably going to be on a 1-year deal. And it's not going to hurt your salary cap going forward into 2023 or 2024.
Dalton, this was great, man.
Yeah, thank you
really
very much.
Appreciate your time today. Thanks for giving us a little bit of it.
Hey, thanks for having me, gentlemen. It was fun.
That's great. That's Dalton Miller, Pro Football Network, with all sorts of good stuff on defense in the next couple of steps. I think this stuff's going to come fast and furious here over the course of the next couple of weeks with various player movement and trades. The new league year coming up here in less than a month, obviously. Combine next week. A lot of heavy lifting going to get done on that front. Our guy Bucky Brooks at the NFL Network, his top 5 guys at each position. Are we sure he's our guy?
I'm not sure about
I don't
that.
think that's true. I think Gibby still hopes that to be true, but I don't know that Bucky
Feels like
is our
wishful
guy
thinking.
anymore. Yeah, I don't sense that, considering the last time we had him on was less than enthused. We'll get to that.
He wasn't pleased.
We'll get to that coming up next. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. rainy. It's actually a little warm today, but it's gross. And a nice hot bath or shower feels amazing every day. So transform your bathroom into a custom bath. It'll feel like a spa. Let the Bath Authority help you out with this. They make it a reality. Fraction of the cost of competitors. The Bath Authority is Cleveland's premier bath and shower remodeler. Expert factory-trained installers. Give them a call now. $500 off your next custom bath or shower remodel. The number is 216-220-8399. Go to thebathauthority.com for more. It's where affordability meets quality. The largest selection of bath projects. They're all made in the United States. You can change your bathroom from outdated to outstanding. Acrylic tubs that insulate, keep the heat in, tub-to-shower conversions. Superior products with expert installers. Go check out my friends at thebathauthority.com. 216-220-8399. $500 off. Tell them Beau sent you. They'll take care of you. I assure you of that. Bucky Brooks of the NFL Network, who at one time was a friend, but the last time he was on, he was just not pleased to be around us.
No, I think he was upset with Gibbe. Word is that Gibbe is replacing Brown's Daily logos everywhere with BPA logos.
Oh, I heard that. I saw that on the social that there was what they don't know what Gibbe's up to, but all of a sudden they can't find CBD. And
by the way, it's
actually
a league issue. It is not a Browns issue, and needs to be rectified at the league level. But it is funny to think that.
Wait, what? What podcast comes up? Is it the league level?
Yeah, there's an issue with that. All NFL podcasts going to Apple, and
they get all spun around.
Something's bad. Something's not working right. Yeah, like even though it says BPA now instead of our picture, it has a BPA picture. You can't even get. There's no BPAs either.
Oh, there's nothing.
There's something in terms of however it's being processed from teams to NFL teams. There's something.
So right now you can't download our show.
You can, but you'd have to go not onto Apple. You'd have to go to a different podcast, Google, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts other than Apple.
Wow.
Yeah. Not great.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Last Thursday was the last one.
Yeah.
That's not good, Bob.
No. And it's supposedly being worked on.
All right. Not great.
So I was trying to give Gibbe grief, but it turns out it wasn't even his fault.
It wasn't even his fault. Sad. This from Bucky Brooks. Top 5 position players in this draft before we get to the combine. So he has one at number 1 that no one else I've seen have at number 1. That's Drake London, the wide receiver out of USC. He has him as his number 1 receiver overall. When I've talked to other guys about Drake London, one of the things they say is just the inconsistency. It's just not there on a play-in, play-out basis. Jamison Williams, he has number 2, who might have been number 1. He probably would have been had he not come off the injury. Garrett Wilson, 3 out of Ohio State. Jahan Dotson, 4 out of Penn State. And then Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. And some people have him going in the top 10. He's been mocked to us before. So these are the names that we've heard a lot. Dotson well ahead of Olave, and London at number 1 is a little surprise to me.
Yeah, so let's go first. London, 6'5", 210, was a former basketball player. And when you watch his highlights, it's a lot of contested catches, and he's great at that. I'm leery, and maybe it's because of the other Mike Williams, maybe it's because of a guy named Dwayne Jarrett. USC guys that are bigger and stronger and more athletic than other players they're playing against in the very loose defense of the Pac-12 who put up pretty good numbers that don't necessarily separate. That concerns me.
A little Kelvin Benjamin feel, too, like just these big physical guys on the outside. I love the examples you use with Jarrett and Williams. Yeah, I mean, that might not be fair to him.
It might not.
But that is, I'm with you. You kind of worry about that.
It makes me nervous, so I would leave that, too. And I haven't watched, other than highlights, I have not watched his tape. But I want to dive into the receivers this year a little bit.
That'll be fun.
And have some, get some, intelligence around that, or at least my faux intelligence, as I think I know what I'm talking about when I look at him. Nonetheless, I'm curious to look at him. Williams, we talked about, could have been number 1. What do you make of Garrett Wilson at 3? We obviously said his name here, which was a mistake on my part. But I feel like it's almost safe to say his name the way that it feels like he's trending, which means they're talking to people and maybe he's not as high, but is going to be a clear first-round pick. But that maybe it is a better chance that he would be there for a Cinco, which would be fantastic. Dotson at Penn State reminds me of just speed, right?
He's electric. Electric player, incredible catch radius for his size. He's one of those guys who brings his hands up late on catches, very sure-handed. Probably not as smooth of a route runner as Olave.
Yep.
And as, he's a little bit more of a jitterbug style. But yeah, I mean, I think I would love, like if let's say you figure out the defensive end situation, like I don't think Dotson's going in the first round. Like I wouldn't be afraid to go Wilson Dotson. I wouldn't be afraid to do that at all, to go first 2 picks, 2 receivers. So I love the idea of Williams following him. I just don't think he will. I think he's going to go high.
Here's his comment on Treylon Burks, who he ranks 5th. Burks is a 6'3", 225-pound playmaker with soft hands and outstanding ball skills. He is a classic number 1 receiver with the size and athleticism to create problems for defenses featuring smaller corners. Doesn't that sound like somebody should be higher than 5?
It does, and I think what he doesn't leave, and I wonder if he actually wrote this or if somebody else summarized for him or something, because what I don't understand here is the notion of a classic number 1. Well, he didn't even play receiver last year. Played receiver last year, but 2 years ago he played running back, played basically a slash, played everything for them. So last year was you want to talk about a classically trained number 1, that's Garrett Wilson. That's he who shall not be named. Yep. That's a classically trained. That is a guy who runs
I think he's saying
precise routes, who is electric with his hands, has an ability to go get it, can separate when he needs to. I think there's a chance he could slip a little bit because I don't know if he's going to run blazing at the combine. So that's great. Fantastic. You know, I don't know if Cooper Kupp ran at the combine, but nobody seems to catch him. I don't remember anybody catching Garrett Wilson at Ohio State. Yeah. So,
he just should have said prototypical instead of classic, because I think what he's trying to say is that he's 6'3", 225.
Right. But that's not classic either. That's more like Anquan Bolden, like that type of
6'3".
Well, Anquan wasn't that tall, but
right.
I mean that type. That's big. Man.
He's bigger.
220. That's an AJ Brown situation.
6'4", 215. I feel like it was like the classic for a while, like an AJ.
That
Green,
was the Julio Jones, AJ Green, Calvin
this guy's
Johnson.
Thicker, and that's why he gets some of the Debo.
The
AJ
prototypical
Brown.
is probably your 6'1", 6 foot. You know, the Jerry Rice would be. Like that type is kind of the.
For a
classic.
while though, the best were like it was. For a long time, it was Megatron, Larry Fitzgerald.
Yep. Big, strong, fast.
AJ Green.
Yeah.
Julio.
It does feel like it's trended away from that
because
recently.
they can't get physical with them. So now it's guys that can separate.
Right.
Your ability to separate is your greatest asset, and then obviously to catch everything that's there.
And that's why I think the Ohio State guys and Williams, I would have Jamison Williams out of Alabama, who was an Ohio State guy too. Like those guys to me are sure things because I know how they're going to run routes. I know they're going to get separation. They are expertly trained by Heartline, and so to me, those guys are locks. Like they're bust proof.
Yeah,
they just are. And Wilson was the number 1 receiver in the country coming out of high school.
Stud.
So everyone's known who he's been forever.
So we'd have 2 of those guys on our roster.
You would have 2 of those guys on your roster.
By the way, can I just say this?
Please.
There's 5 guys here.
Mm-hmm.
We can't get a sentence on all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think a little summation, 2 sentences on every guy would be appropriate.
It's not a lot. I'm not asking for a lot. There's not a single comment on Wilson or Dotson.
Nothing.
And then you go down to defensive end, which is another position that obviously has some interest to the Cleveland Browns, and he's got Aiden Hutchinson, Thibodeau from Oregon,
George Karlaftis out of Purdue.
Ojabo. I like that kid, and then
Michigan.
Jermaine Johnson 5. But he doesn't mention. It's all about the first 2, then Ojabo. You get nothing about Karlaftis. And the reason I was going to ask you about him, and we'll go through the full mock, but just kind of as a top level, because that's who Daniel Jeremiah has the Browns taking at 13.
Karlaftis?
Yeah.
I don't sense that.
You don't like that? You would not be
I don't think that this group would take him there.
What's his – give me like the 2-second Big Ten summation of his game.
He's a hell of a player with a big-time motor. But he
didn't have a lot of production.
But he's not. Well, he was on Purdue, so that's tough. I think he'll be a really nice player. I just to me it doesn't fit the MO of this. So you think about the guys we draft; they're usually from big state U and big production, and usually really young
athletes.
Yeah, so they're going to test well. They're going to have production. They're going to play at big state U, and they're usually younger. We tend to like guys younger in the draft,
older.
And he's older. Yeah, so to me that misses a lot of the boxes.
All right, good.
On that front,
fair enough.
From that perspective. So, but yeah, so it's interesting. That's 3 Big Ten guys with Karlaftis, Ojabo, and Hutchinson.
I think Ojabo.
He's nice.
I like him.
He is nice. Yeah, Thibodeau's my favorite of this group for sure. But he's not going to be there.
I feel like Ojabo is like in the Tack McKinley role. If we had Miles and Clowney, and then that guy is the third. I feel like that'd be a ton of fun.
Yeah, but it feels like you need to check on the outside more. Like that would be the number 1. But we'll see how that goes.
Yes,
but those are kind of your 2.
I'm locked.
Don't leave me. Don't leave me.
Don't worry.
Stick with me on
I'm
this.
with you.
Got to have it. Got to have
yes,
it. Everybody who won this year had it.
Yeah.
You got to have an ability to separate and get deep. I was curious just from a quarterback perspective, not that we would look at these guys, but just from a quarterback perspective, how he viewed, because some of this stuff is a little off from some of the other things. So he has Pickett 1, Matt Corral 2, Malik Willis 3, and Sam Howell 4.
Desmond Ridder 5.
And Ridder 5. So that's his kind of breakdown of the 5 quarterbacks in this thing.
Pickett is the headliner of the class, he says.
Yeah. All right. There you go. All right, we mentioned some of the issues on the social. We talked about the Jarvis thing earlier in the show. Aaron Rodgers with an interesting Instagram post this morning, and then
very grateful.
Talked about it a little bit. Very, very grateful. Talked about it on the McAfee show. We had news over the weekend on Deshaun Watson in terms of what the future is like for him, which I think, quite frankly, guys, it could be a little murky. So no shock there, but I think maybe they were hoping for a little more clarity. I don't think you're going to get it. We'll get into all that stuff coming up next. Just to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You guys are down.
Any question?
Back in 30.
JoshBookman@gmail.com or visit bookmanandson.com or go see him, 8803 Brecksville Road.
Heat Exchange Hearth and Patio Shop is Cleveland's fireplace, barbecue, and patio headquarters, and home of Ohio's largest display of barbecue grills, smokers, and accessories. Heat Exchange has available inventory of grills, smokers, fire pits, patio furniture, umbrellas, and more. We service everything we sell and offer 6 months, same as cash. Stop in to our 12,000 square foot showroom in North Ridgeville.
Heat Exchange Hearth and Patio Shop.
On Lorraine Road, 2 miles west of I-480, Lorraine Road exit just minutes west of the airport.
Waste Recycling, family-owned, operated. Whether you join them as a customer or as an employee, you'll be part of the family. Visit Rumpke.com to learn more. So when you saw the Rodgers Instagram this morning, where he thanked...
I saw it last night because I was
you were
delayed.
Well, early this morning, though,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Quite early.
Yeah. So he thanks his ex-fiancée, Shailene Woodley. He thanks current coaching staff, Peter LaFleur. Thanks many of the people that he's played with.
Past players,
all sorts of things. Yeah, all sorts of photos. There's some mixed in terms of tense. We're from present tense, past tense a lot. Like it was all mixed in there. And you say, boy, this guy is an enigma wrapped in a mystery. There's so much to this. And, of course, we realize he does love that. He loves that part of it. And what's ironic, of course, is he swore he wouldn't do this type of stuff because he hated when Favre did it to him.
He's leaning into it.
And he's leaning right
Loving
into
it.
Absolutely loves it. So he goes on.
And the picture of Cobb and Adams is where he typically stands between them every time. And he picked a picture of the one game, which was the Kansas City game, where he was not standing between them.
Yeah.
As the picture of those two, which was people thought was very interesting.
All this cryptic nonsense to read into it. So it's pure joy. He created chaos. So he goes on McAfee, and he goes, which is this is his day to do that. It's Tuesday's visit with Pat, who's great. And he goes, no announcement today. We're not making any news here today.
No decision.
No news here today. What do you, understanding this is just a gut feeling, how do you think this plays out? Because you could almost read that as could have been read as a retirement. Could have been read as goodbye.
Goodbye to Green Bay.
Yeah.
I don't know. It felt more like I'm not going to be playing for Green Bay. Am I not going to be playing at all? I don't know. But that's what it felt like. But that could also be him doing that so that he could then be like, I'm coming back. And everybody, we love you. I've sent all Packers Twitter into complete chaos.
Right.
And now I can be the hero.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a wild thing. But do you think he is the first domino that has to fall, or does Brady to the Niners go first?
I wonder about how that's going to play out, when that's going to play out. I don't know. I think that's a very interesting
It sure is.
part of it. And then Arians, over the weekend said he's not playing again.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was after all the reports at the end of the week were saying that there was a rift between the two of them.
Sure.
That he would come in, paratroop in, change game plans, all of that. And this is all reputable stuff. So there's smoke.
Whole thing's wild.
So you've got Brady, you got Rodgers, you got Wilson, you got Watson as the AA list guys. Rodgers, who knows? Good luck getting a read on that. Brady seems to be most people kind of starting to come around to the idea of he's going to play next year
for the Niners.
And for the Niners.
And that's it. That's really all.
And then that's it. That's all you hear.
Yeah.
The Wilson stuff is backburnered, but it does feel like he's done there.
Well, he scrubbed the Seattle from everything.
Right. So that feels like he's done there. He's different. Different cat.
Strange bird.
Yep.
I do think that there's a part of him that would love the opportunity to go to a smaller market team and be the hero who brings them a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Or he's a guy who wants to go to a big market and just try to blow up and be Mr. Hollywood.
Yeah, I think he likes being. Yeah, I think he likes being Mr. Hollywood. If you can, when you just see some of the social stuff he does, it feels like he does like that.
Yes.
It's possible that he's one of those guys that went from for a long time underrated to maybe now a little over. Forever, it felt like nobody was talking about him, and then all of a sudden everybody did, and then it kind of overcorrected. It feels like.
Well, it feels like, and I don't know if he was just trying to do too much or how it was going in Seattle, if he was frustrated, so he was kind of trying to do too much, it felt like, and sometimes that would cost him, from playing within the structure.
Yeah, I mean, he will throw a bad interception.
Yeah.
That happens.
And he will take bad sacks.
Bad sacks, crippling sacks. All right,
but he's still pretty good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We'll get to Watson in a second because that's easily the most complicated of all of these. But what Rodgers did say, as we bring it back to him, so this is, I told you he went on this cleanse. So he did what is called a panchakarma cleanse. Panchakarma cleanse, okay? That's what it's called. So here are the details. Panchakarma cleanse. Okay. 3 days of ghee therapy. So you say, well, what is ghee therapy?
Butter.
Sure. You consume ghee.
Clarified butter.
Until you evacuate at both ends.
That's
one day of therapeutic vomiting.
Hold on a second. That can't be good for you.
1 day laxative
That's
therapy.
Pure fat. You were just, it's like.
But you're probably throwing a lot of it up. 3 days of herb drops in the nose, many days of enemas, yoga, meditation throughout.
Why? For what purpose?
I have no idea.
What's the purpose of this?
I don't know.
Is he
I'm not
taking
doing it.
ayahuasca at the end of this?
That's what I was wondering, if it kind of felt like that's where it was headed, because it seemed like a lot of the stuff that allegedly happens in that.
Yeah, and like the preparations.
The idea behind this, the body can be divided on a basis of parts that need cleansing: head, gastrointestinal, upper, lower. The 5 main karmas to cleanse the body are, and then they go through all of these things and the way that happening. Induced vomiting helps clear the upper gastro, so that's part of that. The induced purgation clears the lower gastro. The oil enema helps lubricate. Oh my God, I can't read that on the air. We're done. Yeah, we're done. That's it. That's a
First
wrap.
of all, I don't know.
I don't know why he's doing all that.
I don't know
Seems
about.
so aggressive.
I don't know about you.
I think we're going to be on the same page. I think you probably do know about me.
The last time I, as an adult, vomited was many, many moons ago, and I go out of my way to ensure that I won't. I find vomiting to be pretty much the most awful thing that happens to your body. I hate it.
I had a run. I had probably a decade long or better, maybe a 15-year run with no.
I feel like that's where I'm at right
now. That
now.
ended in December when we had that. Remember that
flu.
2-day flu that hit.
And
wiped
is
out
there anything
everybody.
worse than that?
No.
So why would you do that on purpose?
No,
Let me have a
it's
day
paralyzing.
of vomiting.
Yeah. No.
I
I'm
would
out.
rather be beaten with a baseball bat than have a day of vomiting.
Same.
That's disgusting.
It's awful. He did it while wearing an Homage office T-shirt with the it was the Michael Scott Dwight Schrute office T-shirt. He loves those office T-shirts.
Yep.
He's constantly wearing those from Homage. So that's where it is on that front. So who knows, man, what the dude's up to. But you do feel like there has to be some. There's got to be some. He said that he wasn't going to let this thing draw out. So you wonder, you thought it would be done before free agency hit.
Well, yeah, and apparently there's also no movement if he's waiting for Davante Adams. There hasn't been any at all contact between Davante Adams and the Packers on a contract there. Yeah, I don't know. They need to really just. I think he's got to be the first one. He says he doesn't want to take long. It's obviously taking long. He needs to just decide what he's doing.
Yeah,
I think
he's probably first.
Yes.
If you were the 49ers, you could have Brady or Rodgers.
There can come any. It sounds like it's Brady. If Brady plays, it sounds right now like it's a foregone conclusion that he will play for the Niners.
Yeah.
So they're not in a rush. Like they're not competing. It doesn't feel like with anybody else for his services. If he plays, I think he's going to play for the Niners.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So.
Yeah. So it does feel like Rodgers needs to go. He's just going to have to make sure there's a landing spot, and it's one that he likes. Is Denver seems to be the one everyone's pointing towards, that it would be Denver, but we'll see. The Packers hired his old favorite position coach just last week to be his quarterback coach again this year. The other one that's out there is the Deshaun Watson one. Now, this one is ultra complicated. So there was a hearing over the weekend. So Mike Meltzer does radio in Houston. He's an attorney and actually also does some stuff with Sirius. And Mike had this to say. I think it's a pretty good summation as I was watching kind of it live, kind of the conversation.
Yeah, there's some good tweets about it too. Some good,
yeah. So he kind of says, and I think this summation is really good out of him. My overall sense on the Deshaun Watson hearing until the criminal investigation against Watson is resolved, Rusty Hardin, who's Deshaun's attorney, would advise Watson to take the fifth in this deposition in these civil cases. Rusty feels this would harm Watson in the court of public opinion. Rusty sounded fairly confident that a decision on the criminal front will happen by April 1st.
That's what he said. That was the date that he kept using.
Yeah, and Deshaun would be happy to sit down for this deposition. I think Judge Collier ruled that way she did, allowing for some plaintiffs to move forward with Watson depositions because both sides agreed to these deadlines well in advance, and that Watson's side has been able to take a lot of depositions.
It sounds like, 75 hours worth?
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they know that my feeling of it was they know nothing criminal is coming in this.
Yeah.
And so they're just trying to get to that point where there's an official announcement that there are no criminal charges, and then you can depose him all that you want.
And he's going to depose them, and clearly the extensive nature of the depositions that Hardin is doing is to make these people say, is this worth it financially
Absolutely.
and or emotionally? Because I can, as somebody who's been deposed, can tell you they are not pleasant experiences.
No.
And they are very expensive, and they take a lot of time.
Yep.
And so I think part of what he's doing there is saying, okay, you don't want to keep going with this all the way through. Once criminals out, I think it becomes much easier to settle these things.
Yeah, because there was talk last year during the season that they were close on settlements.
Like 18 of them.
Yeah.
So he's able to be deposed by the people who did not also file criminal complaints right now. Anybody who filed a criminal complaint, that can't happen until after April 1st.
Right. Yeah. So there was hope, I know, from the Houston perspective that they would have a deal for him done before the new league year.
Correct.
So that's, 3 weeks?
Yep.
So if that's the case, does that become more or less likely based on what we saw last weekend? Is it possible? Because they're in a tough spot, man, because if they want their full value, then they need essentially a cleared Deshaun Watson.
Correct.
He's the biggest block in their rebuilding
what you're
piece.
hoping, I think what you're hoping for, you put that April 1st day out there, and I think you're saying, let's get this hopefully done even before that. You know, I don't know why they wouldn't want to try to get to March 1st. I feel like that feels like the most prudent thing that they could possibly do.
Right.
For that reason. But again, that's not the court's issue.
No, that's not their deal. They're not on the
league year
NFL
starts.
calendar.
No, but April 1st would still allow it to be before the draft.
Yes, it
So-
would. Yeah, just would not be before the league year.
Correct.
And so if you were trying to do, some sort of trade where players were involved, you might want to do that beforehand. But
Sure.
that is let's do them real quick. Let's play a little game called Stay or Go.
Okay.
Rodgers,
Go.
Wilson,
Go.
Watson,
Go.
clearly go. Brady?
I mean, he's not playing for the Bucs, so
Right.
technically he's a go one way or the other.
Right, but go and play, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rodgers, I would have thought a week ago, was definitely staying with the Packers.
I know it. I don't know if you can make anything of what he's doing,
Sure.
though. Like, some of it's so bizarre. And, to put this thing out on McAfee so all of us Google what it is, who knows if that really happened or not. He could have just been looking up the most grotesque thing you could do to your body over the course of 4 days, 12 days. And
Did
saying,
McAfee say, why did you do this?
well, no, we were doing this. So I have no idea. I'm guessing he did. Maybe he didn't even know what it was. How would you know what it was off the top of your head? I'd never heard of it. I'm not as worldly as Pat McAfee, but I would assume similar. I've never heard of anything like that.
No, that would be a lot for me. That's a lot. I'm troubled by that, to be honest. I don't understand how you get to a point where you think that's what you need to do for your body.
I don't either. But it does speak to, you had a lot of goes there. So that's a lot of action and activity over the next month.
Yeah,
It could be.
and I think it's either going to be a lot of going or all staying. I think there's either
All or
gonna be-
nothing.
Yeah. And I think
If it's an all or nothing, then there aren't enough quarterbacks to quarterback NFL teams next year, and you're going to have 5 kids drafted in the first round if they all stay.
Yeah.
Because if Brady goes to San Francisco, that was a spot that Lance was going to occupy. Now he's not. So you took an established. Now there's no established here. We went through the whole thing, but the Wilson thing, if Wilson goes, there's no established there. Rodgers would allow for Love.
Right.
And Houston would allow for Mills, who I think they're comfortable with for whatever you like of him. I
Sure.
mean, he's probably a Band-Aid, get you through a couple of years till you find the guy you really want. But that's a lot of jobs open.
Feels like Wentz will be available. Garoppolo will be available for sure. Sounds like Cousins maybe no. Carr no.
But in those instances that you mentioned, if Wentz is available, and Garoppolo is for sure lock one way or another, whether it's Brady or Lance, they're moving off of him. But if Wentz becomes available, wouldn't Indy have to have somebody there?
Of course.
Like they got to have somebody there to fill in
yeah.
and
yeah.
take that spot. Like, do they get on Garoppolo? Like, what does that look like for them?
I don't know, but
Because they feel like they're a contender.
They certainly do need to figure that out. And beyond that, the other name that's out there that's all of a sudden you have Mariota's name's been getting some mention, but Trubisky's name all of a sudden, there was like a huge PR campaign coming out of Buffalo about how great he is, and Josh Allen saying he's such an athlete, and Jordan Poyer saying 1,000% he's going to be not just a starter, he's going to be a good starter in the league. maybe there is something to Mitch. He did take the Bears to the playoffs with what people would say was some coaching malfeasance by Matt Nagy.
He was really young when he was drafted. He was overdrafted.
Yep.
It doesn't usually work out when a guy plays 1 year. He's one of those. He's in that, the Mariota, Winston.
But could he be a Tannehill?
But could he be a Tannehill? That's what people want to know. Like, he had great
he's
coaching,
more athletic, right?
The last couple of years. Can he drive the ball the way that you need to drive it down? That I think would be the question.
Yes.
But I mean, that's what you'll start to do and we saw this last year with Carolina. They talked themselves into Darnold, right? They're like, boy, we thought we were going to get Watson. We didn't. We can sell Darnold, and maybe there's more to him than what you thought. So, yeah, I mean, I think all of those guys are going to have tremendous amount of value because, folks, we did this a couple of weeks ago. There were 20 spots where it was uncertain at quarterback. And
yes.
there aren't 20 guys, and this is not a draft that has those guys. So there just aren't going to be enough spots to land by the time you get to all of that. Still so much more to come. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. And cause your injury, call the injury lawyers at 1-800-ELK Ohio for a free case review. Elk & Elk's a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Joel Corey will be on the program tomorrow from CBS Sports. We have another.
And Ben Lindsley from Pro Football Focus. They just did their quarterback review of the season.
Oh, there you go.
Detailed, thorough, so he'll join us to talk about that at 2 o'clock.
Oh, very much. Look forward to that. What did you make of Juwan Howard putting his hands on a dude?
Ridiculous. So many things about that were ridiculous. Number one, the pressing. 2, the timeout was absurd. I understand that he was upset. He was just walking by saying, I'm not going to forget about this. Should just let him go by. Let him go on by. The Wisconsin coach Gard, is that his name?
Greg Gard, yeah.
Greg Gard stops him. It escalates. And Juwan, if you're gonna throw a hand, throw that. Get your money's worth. I mean, that was like a weird slap that then turned into a fist on the pullback, which was
strange.
Everything
it
about it
was like a head push grab.
Everything about it was weird.
Yep.
Not a good look. Not a good scene. Ridiculous. and, suspended for the rest of the regular season.
Which is 5 games.
His post-game speech was
even
absurd. It was just
more silly.
It was as if he didn't realize what had just transpired and that all the world had seen it. His statement was very good.
Yeah,
hit the right
naturally.
notes. And so,
It's fireable. It's absolutely fireable. If they would have wanted to, they could have fired him.
Sure.
It's fireable for sure.
Sure.
And it's not only just for this incident, but he's had others. He had one with Michigan State a couple of years ago. He had one last year with Maryland in the Big Ten tournament where he's yelling at Mark Turgeon, the Maryland coach. Like, he's done this before. This is what happens a little bit. I mean, this is why we have anti-nepotism laws. Like, he's not obviously to the letter of the law, nepotism, but he is a son of Michigan.
He's a Michigan man.
He's a Michigan man. And it's hard. They did the same thing with Harbaugh, the nonsense they put up with Harbaugh. Like, when you hire your own, the loyalty sometimes is tough to break through. And I think 5 games is laughable for that. Laughable.
He's got to be on a zero tolerance policy.
And I would think, and the fine was nothing. It was like $40,000 or something. Like, the fine was peanuts.
Got $10,000.
Yeah, it was nonsense. So, I mean, Juwan Howard made $100 million in the NBA. Like,
he makes $3 million a year from
Michigan. Yeah, from that deal. So the punishment was nothing. But did you see the Tom Izzo thing about they were trying to I tweeted out this morning they were trying to outlaw handshakes, and he went on this rant about what are we doing as a society?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Take your medicine when you lose. That's how character's built.
Yeah.
I encourage you to listen to that and find it.
Agreed.
All right, good job to you, buddy. We've
Likewise.
got the next level coming up next. Thanks for listening.